All right, so let's imagine for a second. You're called to meet the most powerful person in the world.
Hmm.
Not just to chat,
Right.
but to plead your case after a lifetime of,
Oh, wow.
let's just say, bending the rules.
Yeah.
And to top it all off, imagine this powerful person is Queen Elizabeth I.
Okay.
That's exactly what happened to Grace O'Malley.
The legendary pirate queen of Ireland.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because she wasn't born into royalty or anything like that, like so many famous women in history.
Right.
She was born into a clan that was known for, like, their seafaring prowess
Yeah.
on the western coast of Ireland.
Okay.
And this is an area where the crashing waves of the Atlantic really shaped not just the landscape, but like the whole way of life.
You sent over this incredible podcast episode about her, and I got to say, I was hooked
Mm-hmm.
from the first minute.
Glad to hear it.
And it got me thinking, she's not just a pirate, right? She's operating in this world where Ireland is really struggling to hold on to its identity in the face of, England getting more and more powerful.
Absolutely.
Oh.
Yeah, her life takes place during like a really key moment in Irish history. We're
Right.
talking about the 16th century.
Mhm.
And this is when, England's power is growing
Yeah.
and traditional Gaelic ways of life are like facing tons of pressure.
All right.
To understand Grace, you got to understand that clash of cultures.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
The podcast episode mentions her clan, the O'Malleys, paying their taxes in hundreds of cows
Wow.
and casks of beer.
That's amazing.
Right.
Not your typical tax season, huh?
No, not at all.
It really gives you a picture of a society with its own systems and hierarchies.
Right.
Way before the English showed up.
For sure.
And Grace, she's born into this powerful clan and raised on a diet of, everything maritime.
Right.
Imagine her as a young girl, like amidst the salty air and the coast, learning to fish, to trade, even engaging in mercenary work with her family.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then there's the pirating.
Oh, yeah, we can't forget about the pirating.
Yeah.
Almost a family tradition at this point.
It wasn't exactly a walk in the park, though, right?
No, not at all.
More like high stakes on the open seas.
Exactly. This wasn't some romanticized idea of piracy.
Yeah.
It was dangerous, unpredictable, often brutal.
Right.
But for clans like the O'Malleys, it was just a way of life,
Yeah.
a way to be independent and, to get rich.
So Grace grows up immersed in this world, defying expectations from the very beginning.
Yeah.
She gets married at 16, which, wasn't unusual in those days.
Mhm.
But what happens next is what sets her apart.
Well, here's where we see Grace's, like, really strong will.
Okay.
She didn't just want to be a wife.
Right.
She wanted to lead, and she proved she could do it just as well as any man, maybe even better.
Wow.
Yeah,
So she takes over after her husband dies in a skirmish.
that's right.
Wait, so a woman leading a clan?
Yeah.
In the 16th century?
I know.
That's got to raise some eyebrows.
Oh, absolutely. Remember, at this time, women's roles were very strictly defined. And here's Grace not only leading a clan, but commanding ships and engaging in activities that were, like, traditionally seen as men's work.
And her pirating kicks into high gear around this time.
Yeah. Yes. It
Like,
does.
she wasn't just raiding ships for treasure.
Right.
She was creating her own rules, demanding what she called taxes for safe passage.
Yeah, it was a clever strategy.
Right.
She understood how power worked.
Yeah.
Merchant ships, especially the ones with valuable stuff, were vulnerable.
Mhm.
So Grace offered them protection, but it came at a price.
Interesting.
Some might call it extortion, but for Grace, it was a way to show her authority and protect her clan's money,
So she's a chieftain, a businesswoman, and a pirate.
all rolled into one.
But life, it always throws curveballs.
It certainly does, and for Grace, one of those curveballs came in the form of Gaelic law.
What do you mean?
So when her first husband, Donald, died, she faced a situation that would have been really hard for a lot of people.
The podcast episode mentioned she couldn't inherit her husband's land.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Why was that?
Well, under Gaelic law, land went through the men. So even though Grace had been running things, she couldn't legally inherit Donald's property.
Oh, wow.
It was a system that really put women at a disadvantage.
So what does she do? Does she just accept this and fade away?
I think we both know that's not Grace's style.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
No, she gathers her kids, her loyal crew, her ships,
Wow.
and she sets sail for her family's stronghold on Clare Island.
Oh,
She sets herself up in this tower castle that's still there today.
really?
It's known as Grace O'Malley's Castle.
Talk about a power move.
Yeah, I can just picture it, Grace standing there on the walls of her castle,
Yeah.
wind blowing in her hair, serving her domain.
Hmm.
She's not giving up.
Right.
She's digging in and getting ready for what's next.
What happens next?
Oh, the next chapter is even crazier.
Oh, really?
She keeps up her, entrepreneurial activities, builds alliances with other clans, becomes like a real force to be reckoned with.
Mm-hmm.
Her reputation as the pirate queen really starts to take off.
It's amazing to think about the respect she had
Yeah.
from everyone around her, especially the men.
I know.
This is a time when women were often seen as less than great.
Right.
Grace stands
She
up.
was natural charisma, a strong personality that drew people to her.
Yeah.
But she also really understood strategy and power.
Mhm.
She knew how to play the game.
And then she gets married again.
She does.
And this surprised me, I gotta admit.
Mm-mm.
This time to a man named Richard in Burke,
That's right.
who seems to have a very different approach to marriage.
Yeah, Richard, from what we know, recognized Grace's strength and smarts.
Okay.
He didn't try to control her or anything like that. It seems like their partnership was based on respect and a shared understanding of, the challenges they face.
I might say he was overshadowed by her, though.
Well, he was often called Grace O'Malley's husband. That says a lot about how people saw her.
Yeah.
Even those closest to her.
Right.
She was the one in charge.
There's this incredible story about their marriage.
Yeah.
Legend says their son was born at sea during a pirate attack.
Wow.
And moments after giving birth, she's back in the action fighting alongside her crew.
That's a great start.
I know legends can get exaggerated, but
sure.
this story, whether it's completely true or not, really captures Grace.
Oh, yeah. It speaks to her fearlessness, her resilience, and her commitment to her family and her way of life.
But as Grace and Richard are building their power
Yeah.
and their family,
Mm-hmm.
the English are stepping up their efforts to control Ireland.
Right.
This surrender and re-grant policy is causing all sorts of chaos.
It is.
What was that policy all about?
Well, it was basically the English crown's attempt to take control of Irish land.
So how did it affect Grace?
Well, Irish lords and chieftains were forced to surrender their land to the crown,
wow.
and then they'd get it back as grants. But under English law, and they had to be loyal to the English monarch.
So it's taking away their traditional rights
Yeah,
and forcing a new system.
exactly.
I can see why that would cause tension.
Oh, it absolutely did. It undermined the traditional Gaelic order and created this sense of uncertainty and instability.
So Grace and Richard are now under pressure to submit.
Yeah,
But this is Grace O'Malley.
right.
She doesn't just accept someone else's rules.
No, she doesn't.
So how does she respond to this pressure from the English?
This is where you see her political skills.
Oh,
She knew she couldn't beat the English in a fight.
right.
At least not yet.
Mm-hmm.
So she tries to negotiate,
Oh, so she plays the game.
just like she did with the merchant ships.
Okay.
She offers her services as a privateer.
A privateer.
Yeah, think of it like a government-approved pirate.
Oh.
Grace proposed that in exchange for, recognition of her land and some autonomy, she would use her ships and crew to harass England's enemies
Wow.
and protect English interests at sea.
So she's offering to be their weapon, but on her terms.
Yeah, it's bold. It's risky.
Yeah. What if they just see it as a weakness?
It was a gamble, for sure,
Mm-hmm.
but Grace was a master negotiator.
Yeah.
She knew the English needed someone like her,
Right.
someone with her knowledge and reputation to help control the Irish seas.
It seems like she was always trying to stay one step ahead
Yes,
to keep her independence.
exactly. She was always adapting,
Mm-hmm.
looking for ways to use her strengths
Yeah.
and exploit the weaknesses of her opponents.
Right.
But even the best players can get caught in a trap.
Okay, what do you mean?
And for Grace, that trap was set by the Earl of Desmond,
Who is that?
a powerful Anglo-Irish nobleman who was trying to win favor with Queen Elizabeth.
Wait, so she's trying to negotiate with the English,
Mhm.
and now she's got this Irish lord working against her.
Yeah, it's a tough spot.
What happens next?
Well, things take a turn for the worse.
In what way?
Grace ends up captured by the Earl of Desmond,
Oh, no.
and her world is turned upside down.
So how does the Pirate Queen end up a prisoner?
Right.
And what does this mean for her family
Mm.
and her fight to hold on to her power?
I guess we'll have to wait for part 2 to find out.
Okay, sounds good.
Welcome back to the show. So when we left off, Grace's strategy was falling apart.
Right.
She was a prisoner of the Earl of Desmond, facing all these accusations,
Mhm.
rebellion and piracy. And
Mhm.
All this is happening while the English are tightening their control over Ireland.
And remember the Earl of Desmond?
Yes.
He was technically on the English side, but he had his own ambitions, too.
Absolutely.
He wasn't above using Grace to get on good terms with the Queen
Right.
and getting rid of a rival at the same time.
Yeah. Grace's situation was really tricky.
Yeah, for sure.
The Earl wasn't just holding her captive.
Right.
He was trying to destroy everything she had built.
Wow.
He took her ships, her lands, even threw her son Tibbet in prison.
That's awful.
It would have been easy for her to give up at that point,
Yeah, I can imagine.
to just accept her fate.
Right.
But this is Grace O'Malley we're talking about.
Exactly.
She didn't just give in.
No.
What does she do?
What?
She appeals directly to Queen Elizabeth I.
Wow, writing a letter to the Queen of England.
Yeah.
Demanding justice.
While you're a prisoner,
Yeah,
accused of treason.
that seems a little bit reckless.
It might seem that way,
Mhm.
but when you look at the letter itself, you see how smart she was.
Okay.
She doesn't beg for mercy or anything like that.
Right.
She says that she's a loyal subject,
Okay.
defending her land from unfair attacks.
The podcast episode mentioned she even played the elderly widow card.
Oh, yeah.
Was she actually that old?
Well, she was in her late 40s or early 50s,
Okay.
which back then was considered pretty old.
That's true.
But it's more than just saying she's old.
Right.
She uses her age to appeal to Elizabeth's sense of fairness,
Mhm.
making herself seem like a woman who deserves peace in her later years.
Clever.
Yeah, she's appealing to Elizabeth's vanity, maybe even her conscience. Like saying that imprisoning an old lady is beneath a powerful queen.
Makes sense.
And she goes even further. She
Wow.
offers a deal.
Like what?
Release my son, give me back my lands, and I'll be loyal to you.
Wow.
I'll be your privateer. I'll use my ships to protect England.
So she's basically saying, let's be allies instead of enemies.
Exactly.
It's risky, but I get it.
It's a really smart move.
Mm-hmm.
She sees that England is gaining power in Ireland.
Yeah.
By offering her loyalty, she's trying to protect her family
Right.
and keep some control.
But she's not just waiting for a response.
No, she's not.
While her letter is on its way to London, things get even worse for her family.
Oh, no.
This English governor, Richard Benham, accuses her son Tibbet of treason.
Oh, wow.
And to make matters worse, he arrests her half-brother too.
Bingham was a ruthless guy.
Yeah.
He saw Grace as a problem, and he wanted to get rid of her.
It's a classic power struggle.
It is.
Bingham represents the English crown.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to control everything.
Right.
Grace represents the old Gaelic ways.
Yep.
She's fighting to keep her freedom.
And this clash of wills leads to Grace's most daring move.
Okay, what's that?
With her son and half-brother facing prison,
Yeah,
maybe even execution,
right.
she decides to take action.
What did she do?
She sails to London
Wow.
to plead her case directly to the Queen.
Grace O'Malley sailing up the Thames River
Yeah.
into the heart of England.
It's like a movie.
It is.
This Irish woman with her reputation for piracy and rebellion,
Yeah.
daring to face the most powerful queen in Europe.
It's amazing.
And then, of course, there's the famous meeting between Grace and Queen Elizabeth.
Mm-hmm.
It's a story full of mystery and legend.
Right. The podcast mentioned some accounts say Grace refused to bow to the Queen.
Yeah, and others say she had a dagger hidden under her clothes.
Seriously?
There's even a story about her throwing a used handkerchief into the fireplace.
What? Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
Okay, so the story goes, Elizabeth pointed out that people usually kept handkerchiefs to use again.
And Grace just straight up said
What'd you say?
that in Ireland, they didn't reuse them because it wasn't hygienic.
Oh, wow.
It's a small detail, but it shows the cultural differences between them
Yeah, I see that.
and how Grace stuck to her own customs.
Even when meeting the Queen?
Yeah, it's like a subtle act of defiance.
It really shows her personality.
Right, she wasn't intimidated by Elizabeth at all.
Mm-hmm.
She was there to negotiate as an equal.
It seems Elizabeth was impressed by her.
She might have recognized a similar spirit, another strong woman in a world ruled by men.
The episode mentioned that we have Elizabeth's letter,
We do.
where she describes Grace.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
What does it say?
Well, Elizabeth doesn't condemn Grace for anything.
Really?
She actually acknowledges the bad treatment Grace and her family received.
From English officials.
Exactly like Bingham.
Wow.
She even seems to admire Grace's strength.
So what happens?
Hmm.
Does Elizabeth agree to Grace's requests?
Yeah.
Does she release her son and give back her lands? And accept her offer to be a privateer?
The answer might surprise you.
Okay.
Elizabeth agrees to almost everything.
Really?
She orders Tibbet and Grace's half-brother to be released.
Wow.
She starts an investigation into Bingham's actions.
No way.
And she even makes sure Grace gets some of the taxes from her son's lands.
She goes into the lion's den and comes out with a deal.
Exactly.
It sounds like her gamble paid off.
It did, but it wasn't a complete win.
Right.
She had to make some compromises.
Mm-hmm.
She pledged loyalty to the English crown
Okay.
and agreed to follow English law.
But she still kept some of her independence.
Exactly, and she protected her family.
It's a remarkable story.
It is.
It makes you wonder, what was it about Grace that let her do all of this?
Yeah.
Was it her charisma,
Maybe.
her intelligence,
Possibly.
her determination,
It could be all of those things.
or something else?
That's a question historians are still trying to figure out.
Yeah, it makes her so fascinating.
Right.
She doesn't fit into any easy category.
She was a pirate, a leader, a negotiator, a mother, a rebel, a survivor.
And in many ways, she was a symbol of Ireland itself,
Yeah.
fighting to hold on to its identity.
And her story doesn't end there.
Right. It doesn't just stop after she meets the Queen.
No, Grace O'Malley's story is far from over.
So what happens next?
She returns to Ireland,
Oh.
and while we might not know everything about her later years, one thing is clear.
What's that?
She never stopped fighting for what she believed in.
When you think about it, it's amazing what she pulled off.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she went up against English officials, outsmarted rival lords, and even negotiated with Queen Elizabeth.
She did.
You don't get called the Pirate Queen for nothing.
She was a force of nature, for sure.
But her story also makes you think,
Yeah.
how should we see her actions in the context of her time? Was she like a feminist before her time?
Right.
You know, challenging those old ideas about women?
It's an interesting question.
Yeah, but here's this woman in the 16th century,
Yeah.
commanding ships, leading armies, making deals.
It's hard not to see her as a pioneer,
Right.
someone breaking down barriers.
But it's easy to look back and label people, you know?
I know it's tempting to use modern terms.
Yeah, like feminists.
Oh, right, but we have to remember that things were different back then.
I get it.
The idea of feminism as we know it today just didn't exist in the 16th century.
So how do we understand her actions then?
I think it makes more sense to view her within her own time and culture.
So within that world where men had all the power.
Exactly.
But she didn't let that stop her.
No, she didn't.
She found ways to work within the system, bend the rules, sometimes even break them.
To get what she wanted,
Yeah.
she was practical and resourceful.
Yeah.
And she would do anything to protect her family, her clan, her way of life.
She challenged things, even if she wasn't trying to change the whole system.
Exactly. And we have to remember, she wasn't perfect.
Oh, right. She was a pirate.
Yeah, she was involved in violence. She took what she wanted, and she could be ruthless.
It's important to see the whole picture.
Yeah, she wasn't just a hero or villain.
Right.
She was a woman of her time.
Living in a tough world.
Exactly. And her story reminds us that history isn't always clear-cut.
There's a lot of gray areas.
It's full of shades of gray.
That's what makes it so interesting.
Right.
We're drawn to people like Grace O'Malley because they make us question what we think we know about the past.
It's true.
They make us think about human nature.
Her story reminds us that history's about people.
Real people.
Yeah, real people with all their flaws and contradictions.
And it's by understanding that complexity that we can really appreciate the past.
And how it affects us today.
So if you're looking for a simple story,
Right.
a clear hero or a villain,
Yeah.
you're not going to find it with Grace O'Malley.
But what you will find is a story of resilience, ambition, and courage.
The courage to challenge things.
Exactly. You'll find a woman who defied expectations,
Yeah.
who navigated the world of power.
And left her mark on history.
Her story still resonates with us today.
It does.
It inspires us to question things, to challenge limitations,
To remember that we can make a difference.
even when things seem impossible.
If you want to learn more about Grace O'Malley, the Pirate Queen of Ireland,
Yeah.
I encourage you to keep digging into her story.
There's so much more to discover.
And if you like this episode,
Make sure to subscribe to the Deep Dive,
we have tons of amazing deep dives coming up.
covering everything from ancient mysteries to modern wonders.
So come along with us as we continue to explore history and the stories that connect us all.